And you must stand united on this camp out frightful assassin of our youth. You can do it by bringing about compulsory education.
So guys, thanks for joining us. It is episode 5, which is quite a feat in itself, I think. Bruce, what were you saying?
I would, yeah.
And this week we are joined by 2 very special people. We are joined by Lucia Faith. We are joined by Mike Clarke. Both need no introduction, and I'll give a short one. So Lucia, obviously owner of Healing Hands, founder of the GDSC, which is the Guernsey Drug Strategy Campaign, and founder of the Medical Cannabis Patients Guernsey Facebook page as well, and obviously a very proactive cannabis activist. Mike, also cannabis activist and cannabis cultivator.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us, both of you. This is going to be a very, very special episode.
Going to be a good one.
One that we're all going to enjoy, I think.
Just hope so.
Yeah. So, I think straight into the first question.
Jump right into it. So the first one would be kind of to get to know what your guys' personal relationship is with cannabis. When did you start using it, and how does it fit into your everyday life?
So for me, cannabis was something that was in my life from quite an early on age, probably teenage years. I was never really into alcohol, never really kind of liked how out of control I was, and the hangovers, how it made me feel. So yeah, I would say, I tried my first a little bit when I was probably too young, but officially I would say from about 17, 18, it really helped me with, I was a young mum, so it really helped me with postnatal depression, which I suffered really badly with, and just depression and insomnia and stuff in general. But for me, the real kind of catalyst with my cannabis journey was when my addiction kind of snowballed. I was a functional drug addict. I still worked in finance, and I was a good mum, and I cooked and cleaned. You'd never know, fully functional, but I was an opiate addict. So yeah, I had surgery, and I quite liked how it made me feel. And I got really heavy into opiate addiction. Was even dabbling in, a little bit of street heroin and stuff like that. Luckily Guernsey, that's a habit that is far too expensive to be able to keep up with.
Hard to find too.
Really hard to find. Good. That's good. I'm glad about that. But opiates not so much. Doctor will just keep prescribing them, no questions asked. But then just kept giving them to me. So I was nurturing I think it was near 8-9 year opiate addiction, and it was getting bad, to the point that I was almost eye flickery, knew I was going to tap into seizures soon if I didn't stop. And then I got into a bit of holistic stuff, and that helped, but cannabis got me off of the opiates fully. I went to Amsterdam for a long weekend with my partner Chris, and within 4-5 days completely clean off of opiates, and I never turned back. So I've been opiate and completely pharmaceutical free for 8, maybe coming up to 10 years, thanks to cannabis. So for me, cannabis saved my life, and it's always been a part of my life. I've never really understood what the issue is from a young age, just hang on, I'm in a pub, people are acting like dicks. There's fights, there's, just people just not acting who they are. People change. I could just never, I used to look around and think, what is with this? This is legal, this is allowed, yet I've got to go home and I'm a criminal and I'm hiding, I'm hiding my cannabis use, and, I get my house raided, numerous times my house was raided, for using cannabis, because people would say something or they'd smell it or, whatever, grain of rice of cannabis, door smashed in. I could just never get my head really around what the issue was. And, that led me, I guess, onto this journey that we'll talk about.
You hear a lot of stories like that too, people using cannabis to get off opiates. My father was one of them. And I think what we need to start doing is stop looking at cannabis as a gateway drug and look at it as, as an exit drug.
It is an exit
Right?
drug.
Absolutely. Well,
Sure. You know, if anything for me was a gateway, it would be alcohol. Like the time I've had the false confidence to try other substances, you know, like Coke or whatever on a night out, is when I've been under the influence of alcohol. Like if I've never been stoned and thought, oh yeah, you know, I'll try something. I can't be bothered. Just about make it maybe to the, you know, to the kitchen to make some food. You know, it's totally like for me, alcohol's always been that gateway. So, so that's my personal journey with cannabis.
Mine started a little earlier than Lucia's, obviously. Sometime in the very, very early 70s, actually, when I was a teenager. Just purely for recreational purposes. I liked it. I liked what it did to me. It didn't cause, as you mentioned, the hangover and that sort of stuff. It didn't cause any after effects. It didn't make you feel terrible in the morning. And it was enjoyable. And I just enjoyed it. And I've used it off and on over the years ever since. So, for over 50 years. Oh man. So, and as Lucia said, back then, prison, I think it was before the dreaded Richards guidelines for their court case hearings, there was an automatic, I think it was a minimum sentence was 6 months in prison. And I remember a story, which I believe was true. There was a chap camping, so this is back again, late 60s, early 70s, a bit of a hippie, camping at L'Etoile campsite in the Vale. There used to be a campsite there. And police raided his tent, on information I imagine. And what was found was a cannabis seed in a rucksack. Now we all know that cannabis seeds aren't illegal, but they charged him and he got 6 months in prison.
For a seed.
For a seed. I mean, that's how draconian, I mean, it's draconian now, but back in the day, it was seriously draconian.
Oh, there is. Just releasing people like in America that have done life.
Life from cannabis.
60s, 70s. You know,
that's a horrible.
It's crazy. But we won't go into the racist.
We're trying to get out of the drugs. Well, yeah.
That would be a whole other podcast.
Yes. Yeah.
So, following on from myself, Lucia, so with the GDSC and everything else you're doing around activism, what was the original driving force behind you starting this?
Well, the driving force, I guess, was being sick of getting the house raided, being sick of seeing the stigma around cannabis. And then I obviously saw on the news and stuff that America was starting to change, you know, and places were starting to allow medical, and it was becoming a lot more progressive, and they were you know, it was just becoming more accessible. And I was just like, well, hang on a minute. It was these guys that started this propaganda. So, but obviously it takes, you know, by the time it gets to Guernsey, it would be 20 years later before we change anything. I just thought, like, we can't wait. Like, this needs to start now. You know, these guys started it. These guys are changing. We've got to change what we're doing. We can't I don't want us to be 10, 20 years behind. Also, my brother at the time, he had AIDS. He passed away when I was in prison. And I always promised him, because he swore that, you know, he was told he'd only live like a couple of years with his AIDS, he'd die. And he swore by his cannabis. He lived, like 30, 40 years longer with his AIDS. And it was because of his cannabis use. And he used to always grow a couple of plants at home for his illness. And he kept getting his house raided, you know, and every time they took his plants away and obviously stressed out his immune system, he got more sick. And he just used to say to me, like, Cizia, what can we do about this? This isn't right. Like, you know, I've proven, like, the doctors know that the cannabis is keeping me alive, but they won't put it on their notes. They won't talk about it. They won't say it, but they know it. And I was just like, right, let's do something. We need to make sure that you can access this medicine. You know, you are the prime example of somebody that needs this. And I get that was one of my driving forces too, was like getting him the access he needed to that medicine. And I'm glad I did. But, you know, sadly, you know, he did He did pass away when I was in prison. But that was a good big driving force for me. Sorry, what was the question again?
When did you set up, and what was the driving factor?
So that was a huge driving factor for me. And being a mum, and watching my son grow up and seeing what he had to go through from, I think the first time our house got raided properly that he would remember, he was 5. And he just got his cereal in the kitchen, and they would have done their homework. They would have known that I was a single mother with a child, but they smashed through my front door, almost hit him by this much, missed him with his bowl of cereal, smashing through the door. I was so angry. I went into full mum mode, a protective mum mode. But it was I don't want my son to grow up with this shit. This is ridiculous. Traumatizing. This is, we're a peaceful, decent family. I'm hardworking. What's the fucking issue here? I'm not drunk. I'm not, I'm a present good parent. Why do I deserve to have my door smashed in? And why should he grow up seeing this? And also, as he was getting into his older years, you watch how they target young people, especially young teenage boys. And I just thought, I don't want him having a life like this where if he chooses cannabis over alcohol, which he has done because he's seen how alcohol changes his father and the aggressive, behavior and stuff there. He was like, I don't want to be like my dad, so he has chosen cannabis over alcohol, which, to be honest, I'm glad. But I didn't want him to spend his life having to look over his shoulder and he's been through that. But luckily now it's no, people don't have to go through this anymore. People literally, yes, I know there's still some work to do, but that was the goal, to make this so that it was more acceptable and people could use it without having a target on their back, which is what was happening. It was horrendous for a long time, and I don't want people to forget about that, because I do feel like we've kind of forgotten, we're a little bit content with this medical market, and we've forgotten actually what we went through before we got here,
That's the problem I have with the medical market here, is as soon as medical got implemented, the conversation stopped.
Totally.
And this is why we need to keep the conversation.
Yeah, and my goal of the drug strategy campaign was never a medical market. That's something I didn't push for. People kept saying to me, oh, that would be a leg in. You should really go for the medical. But for me, it was but there's no difference for me. Tell me the difference between a medical and a recreational market. It's the same fucking pad. There's no difference, and whether somebody is using it, probably unconsciously, for medical reasons or not. I didn't know when I was using it in the past as a teenager that I was using it for my PTSD and my postnatal depression, but I'm aware of that now. As a an adult that understands myself more, I'm aware now that that's what I was doing then. I was using it as a medicine, but I also use it recreationally. Tell me what the difference is. There isn't one. No. So for me, pushing for the medical was never the agenda. It was just, I wanted a educational regulated market for adult use, because I believe in sovereignty over my body. As an adult, I should be able to choose in all things.
Absolutely.
I massively believe in sovereignty, and that's something that we're still not there. We're still being babysat by governments that, to be fair, can't even babysit themselves. Sorry, but it's a shit show.
And that's getting worse rather than better.
Totally. And we're not looking at evidence. We talk, there's a lot of this, we love to give lip service in government and talk about how they're evidence-based and, they're looking, but they're not looking at evidence at all. They're cherry picking what suits their narrative and their agenda at the time. And I'm not okay with that. I want full transparency, for looking at all the spectrums of the evidence, and also speaking to people, speaking to community, speaking about human to human experiences, rather than this idea that someone knows better all the time.
No.
So that's kind of how we got here, I think.
So you were also nominated too for an award with the Pride of Guernsey. What was
Yeah, so I think it was 2021.
that? Okay.
I think, or,
But before
or
you
maybe
went into
2020.
president.
Yeah, so I was nominated for a Pride of Guernsey Award for basically the work I do in adversity. You know, for changing the script on addiction, because that was something that the GDSC did. You know, we really pushed for. Addiction was only looked at as a criminal issue, so it's kind of sat with the Home Committee forever. And I was like, hang on a fucking second, right? This is not a criminal issue. Like, this is a health issue. Addiction's a health issue. And obviously it took me a while for that seed to be planted and that penny to drop. But eventually it was kind of understood that, okay, actually we need to share this. So Home and Health started to share how we look at addiction. And then, so that started to change there. So that's why I was nominated for the Pride of Guernsey Award, because it was about all the work I'd done around kind of the reform and the cannabis activism and stuff like that. And it was quite hilarious, to be honest, because obviously I was going through all the court case, and you know, the bailiff of Guernsey had sat some of the court cases for us. And there's my big head on the screen. Here's Lucia Faith, who has been nominated for her work on cannabis, and there's the bailiff and his wife and other people sat underneath, like obviously because they attend the awards. And it was just, it kind of just shows how ridiculous a lot of this is. You know, just this whole thing. Like, sometimes I look back and it feels like a bit of a dream of all that we've been through, because it's just like, it just feels so silly.
Why did it happen to us?
So silly.
Yeah.
Like, really, like, to think, you know, like how the community or not everybody, but how a lot of the community have viewed it, and to be nominated for an award, and to come third out of all the people that were nominated, and then, but still be on the flip side of it, your government still taking you through this court case and wanting to, like, take everything from you, ruin your life, take you away from your family, your loved ones, your children. But on the flip side, you're being nominated an award. You know, it's this, like, duality of craziness, you know, of policy and community not being aligned. And for me, this is still a huge issue. It's not aligned. And it's like, just what the fuck are we doing?
Yeah, but can't argue that one.
Yeah. So with that as well, so you stood for the States in 2020.
Yeah, I've done it twice. I stood in 2014, I think, and then again in 2020.
So we're polling of just over 4,600 votes. So what was the nature of your campaign?
Compassion, really. Like, to look at creating more compassionate policies, and creating a more compassionate government, because everything's so black and white, and life isn't black and white. You know, there's just, you know, it's either this or this, and there's no in between. There's no, like, we're not ever looking at the whole picture, all the grey areas in life. And for me, it was about how can we do things better, and also do things for community. You know, I was just sick of seeing, you know, not everybody, but a lot of people that go into politics, there's an agenda. Again, that they've got their own hidden agenda and narrative, or, you know, there's some conflict and crossovers, which again I don't agree with. You know, people that are in business, you know, people that are still, you know, running law offices, people, you know, all this crossover in politics, and it's hugely conflicted, and I don't think that's okay. And there's rarely anybody that is really a voice for the community and a voice for the most vulnerable.
Yeah.
And I guess I wanted to be a voice for that, because that it's missing. There's all these voices for business and corporations and
Exactly.
and this side of things, and they've got enough voice as far as I'm concerned.
Yep.
So it was, for me, it was a voice for the people, really. But I didn't necessarily expect to get in. I had a feeling that a lot of my votes were probably being burnt. As was I in a past life.
Yeah, burnt there.
So I kind of wanted to touch base on your side. So you've used it recreationally. You have a wife, Mandy, who
Yes.
you found that she has a medical condition.
She does.
And she benefits from cannabis.
Yes.
So what is that medical condition, and how did you find out she benefited from it?
She has the symptoms are what's called ataxia. So her coordination, something wrong with her in her cerebellum. So her coordination is shot. Her balance is gone. She struggles to walk. She walks differently. She has changed her gait. Her speech sometimes gets a bit slurred. Strange like we were a speech therapist yesterday to try and correct a few things on that. But once she was diagnosed, which was just over 20 years ago, I think now. I remember her GP or one of the consultants we saw said, make the most of the next 10 years because this is a degenerative condition, obviously. That was nearly 25 years ago. She still actively walks around and she uses a stick and she gets very tired and she's things she can't do. But she can't drive anymore because her coordination is, you wouldn't want to meet her coming the other way. But she gets on okay. We discussed cannabis pretty soon after she was diagnosed, and we took ourselves off to Amsterdam just to see what it did for her. And it eased everything instantly. You know, it didn't cure anything, but it eased everything. It made her life more bearable. So we spent a lot of time in Amsterdam, far too many long weekends, financially, far too many long weekends, and decided to grow a couple of plants at home. 4 or 6 plants we grew at a time. So that was a long time back. That was successful. No cannabis that ever left the house. It wasn't commercial. It was purely for Mandy's and my personal use. Things changed over the years, and we decided to expand the grow room a little. And
So you fitted out a room in your house?
yeah, it was a cellar. It was an old cellar in an old house.
Okay.
So I set up a grow room, a little veg room, and grew everything completely. It was for our own purpose. It was our own consumption. So I wanted the best that I could grow. So I learned how to do it. Got qualified through an online Californian college.
Okay.
Strange, I think it was called the House of Green.
Of course it was.
It wasn't
Green flower.
Green flower. It was
Green
green
flower.
flower. Thank you. My memory. And started to grow them completely organically. Purely, I just wanted the best quality that I could get. And then we met because I was buying seeds from Lucia. And then the rest is history, as it were.
It's actually how me and Lucia met, was when I came over with the House of Green.
Yeah, as you said, yeah.
So first time I met her was in the boardroom at the House of Green because we were looking to buy seeds from her
Yeah,
at the time. So
I didn't want to buy my own seeds. I didn't want them coming through the post, given what I was doing. So we got them through Lucia.
So you grew for a couple of years then? Well, because the
Probably I grew for probably 10 years.
10 years, but 2 years is what got noticed.
Yes, 2 years I increased the thing. Increased production.
And you said you were growing for quality. So what kind of methods of growing? Was it organic and
Just purely organic in buckets, in plastic buckets. But all 100% organic and with lots of love. You know, everything was, and it was grown for quality. I didn't do anything to force extra flowers or anything like that. I grew perfectly naturally. Some got top now and again where it was necessary.
Sure.
Which you don't get from the medical market now. It's just not the same.
No,
Not
it's
the same
mediocre.
quality. It's really not.
No, and it's irradiated and you know, it's not. It's nice, but it's not as nice as good craft
Yeah.
cannabis, homegrown.
I'd much rather buy my weed from Mike.
I mean, the medical industry is not growing for love. They're growing for
No, it's very just, yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's unfortunate, but yeah, it's how it is, I guess.
And whilst I needed some money at the time, but it wasn't my primary driver. My primary driver was the quality of the thing. You know, and because I sold it quite cheaply, I think.
Yeah, it was really
Very, very much under market.
pretty much
price.
the cheapest on the market.
Yeah, but it was enough.
Yeah, it was
enough
just,
to
well,
pay.
it was fair, wasn't it, for your time? And
I say it's enough to pay the electricity costs.
Exactly.
which is the day that we got caught, or I got caught and got raided, we got swamped by two police officers came at first. And one of the first things, an old boy looked at the electricity meter, and I said, "Well, do you want to see the electricity meter?" I knew exactly what he wanted to see. And they said, "Well, people that do this usually hotwire their supply because they don't want to pay it." I said, "Well, I'm not a bloody criminal." You know, and they were the words that innocently came out of my mouth.
Yeah.
I'm not a criminal. And I still think I'm not a criminal.
No, I don't think. I'm
Clearly,
a criminal
clearly I
either.
broke one of their laws, but
There's a big difference.
where's the crime? You know, where's the
The criminality is holding a law in its place that they know is a lie.
Yes.
The criminals are the people that are holding laws in place that they know are fucking based on bullshit.
all based
That
on-
is the criminality here. Like, we are not criminals. Like, that is for me where the line is you know, withholding law. What's the word I'm looking for? You know, holding up laws still that
That are unjust.
they know that there's no substance to them.
No.
You know, and that's to me where the real criminality is, you know, and that sits with the politicians and those that pull the strings above them, and they can keep passing the buck onto everybody else. You know, it's ultimately it sits with them.
Absolutely.
They managed to change laws in real time for COVID overnight. Oh, we can change this law. Look how quick we can change laws now. Oh,
And
look.
And in financial services.
Exactly. So
mean, we
don't
also
tell
could
me
say-
that we can't change laws like this that are, you know, create all this social injustice and this chaos. Don't tell me we can't change these laws overnight if we really wanted to. We're choosing not to.
With the system with no political priorities, it makes it easier to do that
Exactly.
as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
But if they want justice, they've got to have just laws.
Yeah.
100%.
You know, and I unfortunately, like, I'm not somebody that will, you know, people say, "Oh, well, you broke the law," because I'm not going to follow laws. I will follow, of course, like, you know, I'll never murder somebody, or, you know, I don't want to be stealing, and, you know, things like that. Like, I will follow laws that I understand and that make sense to me. Don't expect me to follow laws that are a lie. You know, or that don't align with my morals or my values. You know, I've always said it. Like, I wouldn't have been a person that would have, you know, thrown Jews to the wolves because the law says I should. I would have been like, fuck that. I would have been hiding them in my cellar. You know, like, get in. Like, I'm not going to let these innocent people be killed just because of where they were born and the religion that they follow. It's the same with this. I'm not going to follow something that is not aligned.
No.
Like, it's just not going to happen. And I still will stand by that. And if they, you know, if I had to be sent back to prison and do it all over again, I would do it.
Absolutely. So the the press release that came out, I'll have to read the numbers. So it was officially 141 plants, so 11 kilos sold, and £43,000 in patch.
That sounds absolutely right.
So the question is, how do you think the authorities discovered that you're actually cultivating? I think this is a question that a lot of us would like to
The house needed some renovation, and I'd arranged one of the jobs was to repoint the front elevation of the property. It was 5 stories high. So I arranged a scaffolder to come around and put a scaffolding up. Within hours, there was first thing first, I switched off the ventilation system. So there was absolutely nothing blowing out. Inadvertently, I had an air conditioner in there. Inadvertently, I forgot to turn the air conditioner off. And of course, that was still pumping out chaos. And somebody, it was only the scaffolders that were there, somebody called the police and said that they could smell cannabis. Then the knock on the door and the rest is history. 14 officers came in and searched our house until the dark. This was very early in the morning. They were still there in the evening. They even knocked holes in the walls. I mean, they had everything laid out for them. They had an Excel spreadsheet, which buried me. Because I'm a bit anal with records and recording what I'm doing and judging results and all that sort of stuff.
And thank God you are.
So I kept a record of every plant, what the yield was, what I sold it for,
As you do as a grower.
because you got to, because it was a rotating thing. I had to know what was going on. So they had all of that. They had all of the money. They had 143 plants. I mean, some of these were in the grow room and they were just little buds. I think there were 50 plants in the flower room. So they had all that. Why they needed to rip the house apart and knock holes in walls, I have no idea. And they were so thorough. In the lounge, in the kitchen, sorry, was it was a kilo pot. It was from protein powder, an old protein powder thing, and it was full of ABV stuff that I'd vaped, old, and that's got a little bit of THC left behind because vaping doesn't get everything out of it. And I kept it, and I have no idea really why I kept it. And it was in a cupboard in the kitchen. They didn't find it.
Wow.
They broke the cooker. They broke it because they'd stood on it to go through the cupboards. But they didn't find this. I mean, they found a little bottle of catnip, which they had analysed.
Wow.
The catnip was a jokey thing. It had meow-arama. Because it is, catnip is weed for cats, isn't it? So they analysed that, but they didn't analyse the kilo of
ABV.
no.
But it's right. It's like it's the disrespect of like breaking everything when they know like you and Mandy still had to live in that house.
Yes.
You know, and everything's already laid out for them. You know, here's all the plans. Here's the money. Like, what was the need for like? But they know as well they can get away with it. A lot of people don't know that once you do have something illegal in the house, they can smash up whatever they want, and they don't have to replace anything.
No.
It's only if they don't find anything illegal, then they have to replace whatever they break. But it's the respect as well.
Because they destroyed everything. All they did,
Yeah,
they didn't disconnect fans or anything like that. They just cut. Everything was cut, smashed, and broken in the grow area. And they
I just think
didn't
it's
always
really
do everything.
disrespectful.
Well, that's what they do because it was an illegal room, I suppose. Call it a room. It was just timbers the size of that one down there, half by 1 inch timbers or something, and black and white on the other side, sticky plastic. Well, not sticky plastic, but just plastic. So the rooms were quite simply made. They're very effective.
So going back to how you got caught, one of the rumors that is going around, if you can clarify on this, is that you tried to pay taxes on all the money that you had.
I did.
Okay.
I declared it because, tax is tax.
Yeah, but you
So I
didn't
declare-
declare it as cannabis.
No,
growing.
I declared it as consultancy fees.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So for the 2 years, and they sent me a tax bill. I can't remember the amount. It was several £1,000s, obviously. And I was prepared to pay it.
So you're trying to do it legally, even though it was illegal.
Illegal, yes.
Yeah.
Then of course, the day after we got, within a couple of days of getting caught, I had to phone the tax office and tell them to destroy the records because what I actually done was grow cannabis illegally, and therefore I wouldn't be paying any tax because I've got no money left anyway. Because it's all
Yeah, it was all confiscated. Yeah.
But yeah, I did declare it for tax.
Okay.
But that's not what got you caught. Then.
No.
Okay, because that's part of what it was being out there right now. Is he tried to, claim it on his tax return and pay taxes on it. That's what got him caught.
Oh no, it's ridiculous. It was I wanted to pay tax on it because I wanted to pay tax.
Fair
I
enough.
wanted to do it above
Being
board.
honest.
Yeah.
We've all got to pay tax because otherwise we have no infrastructure.
Lucia, same question for you. How do you think that it was? What do you think how did it lead up to you being caught for some?
Well, obviously for me, it was my link.
Phones.
Yeah, phones, and my link with Mike. Messages. They would have loved seeing my name. They would have just been like, yes, finally.
So you guys gave up your phones to them? Is that and then, or you gave up your phone and then that's how they found you?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. But I'm a massive believer that it was to do with the reason why we got caught was because of the scaffolding business.
Okay.
Because it's not the first time that I'm aware of this. The individual involved in the scaffolding business personally getting me into trouble previously. This is the first time I've ever had a criminal record for anything. But I've had my house previously raided due to the individual of this scaffolding firm. So as soon as Mike said to me, you know, what had happened, and that he'd had this scaffolding firm and they must have smelt it and blah, 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 I was just like, yeah, okay. And I've had it out with the person and they just deny it, but I'm not having it. I fully believe it was to do with them.
So that person
Because
is known for being an
they're known for being an
Yes.
informant,
Yes.
well known for being an
I believe he was
informant.
caught with some Class A drugs.
Yeah, he's a heavy drug addict.
Okay.
He's a heavy drug addict himself, and you know, when you understand the justice system and the police system, you know, they get their, you know, dressed down, super cool colleague that slides into an interview and is like, you know, oh, you know, I know you're a drug addict, and you know, it's not your fault, it's the suppliers, and what you know, we'll look after you if you just help us, we'll protect you, we'll give you a different name, you supply us with information. So that's great for somebody who's a Class A drug addict that injects, you know, that's I'm off, you know, I can continue with my addiction and the police will look after me if I just snitch on a few people that aren't important to me. You know, so that's what went on here.
And it's not an isolated incident either.
It's
because
not
we
an
all know
isolated
someone- We all know
incident.
of someone who's in that position.
Exactly. So to me, that's how this came about. I honestly think things would have been okay, and eventually, you know, we would have got to a point where cannabis would have been acceptable anyway.
The medical would have came
Yeah,
into play.
you know, and for me, it was
All that
only
would
like
change for you guys, I'm sure.
a kind of short period of, and you know, I've always said it, even the officers said it in my interview, you made it very clear that, you know, I'm only helping you because of COVID. Because for me, that was the only reason. People can find their own. I can't be the activist and supplying cannabis. Like, you know, that was too dangerous. But because of COVID, and, you know, again, like the court seems to forget about that. It was never even mentioned in our court case. We forget how traumatized people were. People were isolated. There was people that were suicidal, people that have serious medical conditions that always used cannabis that then could not access it because all our cannabis, unless you knew somebody that grew, which was, you know, under the radar. You know, people weren't shouting about their grows in Guernsey, you know, because you'd get raided instantly because the police had nothing else to do. So, I forgot where I was going with it.
COVID.
Yeah, COVID. That was for me the reason. Everything's imported. I had all these people in a crisis. Like, well, you're the cannabis girl. You know, you're the one that does all the activism. You must know someone that can supply us. And I did feel a pressure. It was like, okay, like I'm getting it. I'd kind of met Mike a little bit earlier before of COVID officially kicked in. So I was getting this good quality stuff for me and my partner. And I felt guilty. I did. Like, it's like I'm being selfish. I'm getting this amazing product for me, knowing that Mike's got loads more he doesn't know what to do with. There's a gap that needs to be filled. I've got people with brain tumours. I've got people with MS. I've got people that are suicidal, people with severe insomnia, anxiety, all these conditions. And they're looking at me going, help me. And I'm not the sort of person that won't help people in a crisis. So that's what I did.
Yeah. Listen,
And for a really cheap price. Like, no, I didn't do it for free. Like, you know, is anyone doing anything for free? Tell me, do you get your hair for free, your food for free? You know, do your cleaners come for free? Like, all of this stuff, you know, use your medical cannabis now for free. No, it's fucking not. You're lying in a pharmacy's pocket. So this idea that somehow we've kind of got a little bit, you know, we've been tarnished a little bit in the cannabis community for charging for it. It's like, that was a full-time job for Mike. He had a huge electric bill.
It's a lot of work.
You know, he was a carer for his wife. He had to retire early. Like, his house was falling apart. He had food to buy. Like, why the fuck shouldn't he charge £20 a gram for the best quality weed we've ever had? And I added on a £10 charge for the risk. Like, fuck me, I took a prison sentence. Like, you know, like, I took it for the risk to pay for my own medical supply for me and my family. And bearing in mind, we were charging £30 a gram for the best weed I think I've ever seen on the island. At a time where already weed had gone up to, I think it was like 45, 50 pound a gram, just standard. And then COVID hit and people were paying 120. Now, if we were greedy, 120 pound a gram people were bidding up to cannabis for during that time. Crazy.
Right.
Now, if we were greedy drug dealers that didn't care about people, didn't care about community, but that were just in it for money, like pharmacies and big corporations, we would have monopolised that market. We would have been selling it for the ridiculous amounts, but we didn't.
No.
We kept it at lower than the going rate at the time. Not to outdo anyone. There wasn't anyone to outdo. It was just out of our own morals and values of, and if somebody came to us and said, I can't afford it, I'm really ill, and then we would have supplied it to them. But no one did. Everybody could afford their cannabis consumption. So let's not make out that we were doing anything really bad here.
There is a lot of critics that'll bring that up. Oh, they were profiting off of it. It's like,
Isn't.
pharmaceutical indries profit off your insulin.
The numbers
Exactly. They're
the numbers
profiting off your
reported.
depression. They're profiting off, your obesity. They're profiting off everything, and yet it's like somehow the script's been flipped to make us turn against each other as a cannabis community, and that's something I've come out and I'm not having this. I'm not having us turn against each other. Cannabis is not about this. Cannabis is about peace and connection and love and consciousness and community. And then you've got these big corporations and all this stuff coming in and politics that are trying to divide us and create this.
Well, they want to take ownership of the business, don't they?
And it's just like, let's not allow this to happen. Let's not allow this to happen. Let's bring it back together. And I'm not saying in any shape or form any of us are perfect, but let's not allow that to happen.
So what it is like you were saying, you're allowing all these corporations to get involved. And the way I view it is you have companies that are going to be part of the cannabis industry, and then companies that are going to be part of the industry and the community.
Yeah.
Is big corporations, they're not part of the community. They don't interact with the community. They're there to make a profit, and that's it. And you're starting to see that now on Guernsey, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's sad. It is really sad.
But it's to be completely expected because business is business. Business is hands in everything that we do and have. It's all about business, buying and selling, and the economy and so forth. But there's also, as we've spoken about, the craft side of things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where it's a community-driven, craft-centered, organic, clean, proper, good cannabis.
Yeah, and it's
At a good price.
At a sensible price.
Yeah.
And that could come again. Well, that will come again. And, corporately, Guernsey corporately, that's where we could score as an island by producing very, very good, high quality, cheap cannabis, sensibly priced cannabis to the market.
Where I kind of see it from my personal view is that Guernsey can grow a craft market flower-wise for Guernsey.
Mm-hmm.
As far as exporting flower, I think you're going to run into issues like we did with the tomato industry, right? However, if you take all those big pounds of cannabis and you now extract it into extract, now you're only sending off a little jar, which helps with the exporting of it. So that's what I would see Guernsey doing in the future. It's exporting extract and using the craft flower for the market here in the Channel Islands. But that's yet to be seen. So
yes, yeah, so that would be a great approach. It would be great for Guernsey, I think, and for the community in Guernsey.
The problem is with Guernsey is, and a lot of places, it's not just Guernsey, but we need actual experts in cannabis sat at the table. We've got too many people making decisions that have no fucking clue about cannabis. Just these men in suits, and women, that have no clue. And it's like, why are the experts in this field, like yourself, Bruce, that has been, in the market that's ever changing in America? You've done all of it. You've seen, the full spectrum of it. You should be there advising. You should be helping them write policy, But again, it's a clown. It's a shit show.
They've got to listen first.
They do, and I've had these conversations. Like I've sent emails year after year now. I've sent emails to all the states members trying to set up what I call a rules advisory committee, which is what we called it in Oregon.
Yeah.
And that included everybody that, your health professionals, your law enforcement, your doctors, and industry professionals, so that we have a voice at that table, so we don't end up with having to, you got to keep your lights on 24 hours in your flower room, which doesn't work, right? Because you have to have that 12 on, 12 off. But they want those lights on for camera purposes, but it just doesn't work like that, right? So this is why you need industry professionals involved. Otherwise, you're going to have policies like that being implemented. And I've given the states, I've emailed every states member an entire framework of how to implement this, and it just falls on deaf ears. I get emails back from Rob Prowse, secretary, just telling me, we already have the Bailey Guernsey Cannabis Agency. It's like, all right, that's great. Who's your cannabis expert there? And then I get nothing about it.
No reply.
Okay. I've had even conversations with the chief pharmacist telling her it's like, you need to have an industry expert, but she wants to find a pharmacist who specializes in cannabis. Good luck with that.
Yeah. There
isn't one.
There isn't one. I was going to say that doesn't exist.
So you're playing this waiting game and kicking the can down the road for what?
Yeah. Because the reefer madness story from the 30s.
Yep.
So nearly 100 years ago that started. It's still endemic. It's still embedded in people's minds. That sort of stuff. As I said to you earlier, with a news report yesterday, where some newsreader said it's a well-known fact that strong cannabis causes psychosis. It causes schizophrenia. She was and just carried on with the conversation. It just that comment was just
it was just
and it's just
conversation that plan, that stick with.
She believes it, but that's the propaganda that's filtered through, then continues to filter through. Cannabis leads to harder drugs. No, it doesn't. I first smoked cannabis when I was 18, I think. So a while ago. I can't do the calculation. How many years ago is that?
Nearly 100.
Nearly 100 years. I've never considered taking anything other drugs. Cannabis is my thing. A little bit of alcohol in between when I drank too much, but I don't drink anymore. I a rare glass of wine, but cannabis is my thing because it's cleaner, safer, more comfortable afterwards. And it doesn't make people aggressive. It's just a wonderful thing. And when they start to realise that, they'll wonder what they've been doing by locking us up and locking hundreds of other people up for far too long and making us criminals. And it's not the prison sentence either. It's what comes afterwards. It's the nonsense.
The whole lot, isn't it?
You can't get a bank account. You can't travel off the island.
Yeah.
It destroys people.
Yeah.
Destroys people's lives for no real sensible reason.
Get housing, it's.
Because as soon as I came out of prison for using this demon weed, this thing that's destroying, absolutely, the devil's lettuce, all these things. As soon as I came out, I spoke to one of the clinics, got my prescription, and got some good cannabis. Well, not some acceptable cannabis.
Yeah.
But you know what was even more funny, right? Whilst we were in prison, guess what job Mike had in prison? Cloning plants in the garden.
So we're using your expertise.
Yeah, well, absolutely.
They were literally using his expertise
joyfully
in
asking.
prison to clone other plants. And I was just
Because
like,
the people involved in the garden,
serious?
the officers involved in the garden are both cannabis users. And they've medicinal cannabis, they understand that it works well for
Most
them.
prison officers were shaking our hands, thanking us. Yeah, really sorry you're in prison, and thank you for my medical cannabis script we've now got.
Yeah, that's interesting. And
Absolutely.
And it wasn't just you guys, right? So you guys have partners that were involved in this as well. That so from my understanding, Mandy got charges dropped.
She did. They dropped charges against Mandy. They said it was for lack of evidence.
Okay.
I think it's more likely because she was disabled, would have been on her own, was clearly distraught the whole day. She was... Her mental health has been destroyed by this whole episode.
Yeah.
She's in a bad place now. She was in tears a couple of days ago, but there's something I said triggered the whole time she had on her own whilst I was in prison. Because I say she can't drive, so she was relying on my kids, and then she had a little falling out with the family over some nonsense.
Yeah.
But she was pretty much marooned for a while. Come and see me, she would get a taxi, and we didn't have that much money left, so we couldn't afford to run around in taxis and goodness knows what. So no, she suffered. I didn't suffer from this sentence at all. You were saying earlier, I just worked in the garden. I just worked hard, and that got me through it. And I volunteered for a couple of positions. I was a listener, a sort of Samaritan in the prison to hear prisoners' problems if they needed that sort of stuff. But she suffered tremendously, and still is suffering. It was
really been PTSD.
Let's say her mental health now is without cannabis, she'd be probably somewhere else, should we say? I mean,
What exactly were they trying to charge her with?
The same as they charged me, though, possession, assisting in the cultivation of, etc., etc.
Okay.
Because clearly she knew what was going on.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been in the public
But it
interest.
wouldn't
And
have
not
been-
only that, they don't have the facilities really for her in prison.
No.
So they have
Being
to
in a
take
wheelchair,
all of that into facts when they're gonna charge someone. Is shit, can we cater for this? And how is this gonna make us
How
look?
will this make us look?
They're always interested in how is this
On
gonna
the
make us
form
look.
that they sent, the dropping the charges form, it gives a reason. And there were two little tick boxes, and one reason was not in the public interest, and the other was not enough evidence.
Yeah,
So they ticked the not enough evidence box.
because they didn't want to admit that they were doing it not for the public interest.
So you guys live in the same house.
Oh, yeah.
All the operations.
Yeah,
going on,
absolutely.
But there's enough evidence to convict you, but not her.
Not her,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. Then this
Well,
is what I
have
mean
great
about, cherry,
It's
we
cherry
cherry
picking.
pick evidence, we
Absolutely.
cherry pick who we want to charge, but all in the name of, we're being transparent, the justice system is not broken, it's not corrupt, it's totally fair. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow.
Not that I would ever, Mandy should never want
Well, she had to go.
her to be charged or go through
Well,
that.
I mean, none of you guys should.
no,
Of course.
but it's, it
Mandy,
just goes
Mandy
to
left the
show.
court in an ambulance.
Yes,
She was taken home in an ambulance
horrendous.
because she couldn't. She fell apart in the courtroom.
It was horrendous.
She was in floods of tears, and she had a panic attack
Yeah.
in the courtroom.
There was no compassion, was there?
Absolutely none at
They
all.
did not care. They were just like, well, who, she was like, who am I, who am I
luck.
going to go home with? And they were like, we'll call you an ambulance. Because Mike's her full-time carer. Like, COVID created, like, an issue where the health system was under strain. There were no carers. There was no one. They had nobody that could actually go and assist for Mandy. Like, the system was failing everybody, yet they still thought it was okay to put Mike in prison and take her full-time carer away when they had no other option for her, though. It was just, we'll call an ambulance and you have to go and sit up in A&E and hopefully they'll sort something out for you. While she's having a panic attack in court because they've just sentenced her husband and her carer.
Yeah.
Like, how's she going to look after you? How's she going to get herself in and out of a bath? How is she going to... She had to just do all of that without him. Like, it was fucked up.
So, one of the things we do in the U.S. in some situations, like if you get out on parole or whatever, or if they just don't have the room to put you in jail or something like that, we have ankle bracelets for house arrest.
No, let's not even get started on
Right. So, in your situation with Mandy, and we'll get to your situation with
Same
your
situation
partner
with the twins,
and
really.
the twins, right? Why not put an ankle bracelet and give you guys house arrest?
They told us. We both brought this up in prison, I think.
we brought it up before prison and we did get Deputy Sasha, I won't even attempt to say her surname because I'll probably say it wrong, but Deputy Sasha did start that ball rolling. I think Gavin St. Pierre got involved a little bit with it too, to say, okay, why is the prison up in OMU is sat this, I think it's 300,000 or more tagging kit and system that isn't being used. It's just sat there in an office, not being used. Why? And when they did some digging, the feedback we got was that the police refused to police it. They say they don't have enough time.
Yeah. That's what I heard.
They have all the time in the world.
Exactly.
as far as I
What
can
the fuck
see.
are they doing? Like, sorry, what? Like getting a cat down from a tree?
Yeah.
You know, like arresting some nipper for, they're not having to arrest people for cannabis anymore. That was a huge part of their job, like that they were wasting energy on for years. They don't have that anymore. So why can't they be policing the tagging system? Like, it's not like there's going to be hundreds of people on a tagging system. We're talking about, they may allow, 20 people on tag, not even that. You're telling me you can't, like, police, say, even 10 people on a tag? They did try it, and funnily enough, they trialed it, I think it was with I'm sure they trialed it with a sex offender. Because there's more compassion in the system for harmful crimes than there is for non-harmful crimes.
A whole episode on that.
Oh, we can do a whole episode
Yeah.
on that.
That blows my mind here. Like when I see how the system works
Yeah.
for pedophiles here.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
It
The
blows
Richard
my mind.
guidelines show that, right? And even how we speak about drugs and drug and addiction, scourges of society, and yet sex offenders and people that harm people, women, men, children, they get half the sentence.
I was going to say,
we do.
I'm not
We
sure the
watch
sentence
sex
was
offenders
come and go.
in and out without no remorse. They were showing, 3 months, for trying to groom a child on TikTok and showing no remorse for it. And we're serving them the lunch thinking, and I got sentenced for 3 years and 3 months for people that chose to take a plant for their health. And I'm here getting this long watching these people that harm an innocent child get 3 months. How do we justify this? And people say, don't compare the two to me. You can't compare the two on Facebook. Don't compare a cannabis sentence to a paedophile. Why? Why should I not? You need to see this.
You've got to
You
compare
need
it.
to see this. What message are we giving our children?
Yeah.
Like, because a lot of the people that end up being addicts is from my experience and from people I hold space for.
Abuse.
They have been abused by those people. And you're then saying those people that abused you get no time. And then when you're traumatized from your experience and you turn into a drug addict, we're then going to abuse you even more by sending you to prison for triple the time for that person that harmed you. What the fucking message are we giving, like, our children? Who's protecting them? How do you expect to get any respect from a community in a system that's broken? I don't respect it. I'm sorry, I'm not going to respect what you're doing when it makes no sense. Like, and that's where you lose you lose respect for systems like this.
You also lose respect because people use false information. So cannabis is bad, so it kills people. It's not killed any. I think it did kill a lady in Wales, I think, some years ago.
Didn't it fall out of a plane in London?
No, I think she did. she ate a huge amount of resin. Like a huge amount of resin.
Well, she probably poisoned her liver.
Oh, absolutely. It was toxic shock or something. Yeah, I don't. But whatever. But I think that's probably the only real cause of cannabis death. Or as you say, it falls out of the sky and hits you on the head. the old joke.
And don't get me wrong, like, I've got compassion for Rob Prowl. Like, I do. I have compassion for people like that because they, when you've spent 30 plus years, whatever he has, doing a job that is, what was he? He was head of customs, wasn't he? For a long time. So I get it. It's like, that was his life. That was his job. And to admit and to shift your view on that is like having to admit your whole life was a lie.
Yes.
And I get that. And that's why I've got huge respect for Tom Lloyd. He wrote to me in prison. He sent me a book. We've done a lot of activism together. And Tom Lloyd is the ex-chief of police for Metropolitan in London. Okay. And he's now a drug reform policy advisor. I adore him. And I've got so much respect for Tom because it's like, you were that chief of the Metropolitan Police. Like, he became best friends with a heroin addict and it changed his life. And he was like, what have I been doing?
Yeah.
I've got this all wrong. And he's been to Guernsey, hasn't he?
Yes,
and he's sat with politicians and he's tried to educate them and say, listen, like, we've got to change how we're doing this. And Rob just won't attend these meetings. He won't engage. And it's like, mate, this is somebody that's on par with you. Like, he's done this. Like, he's been at the same level, if not much bigger, higher level than you. And he's here coming to you and saying, listen, mate, like, as a professional that's done the work you have, like, we've got this wrong and we need to look. But he won't engage in these conversations, which is just really sad. But I am compassionate to, he is having to admit his whole life is a lie, and I get that is tough, but I would have way more respect for him if he grew as a person and he just said, listen, all right, maybe I've got some of this wrong, and let's talk about it.
I mean, look at Dr. Sanjay Gupta. He's been against it for so long, spoke out against it, and then when he saw what was happening with medical patients and children stopping their seizures and all that, he totally flipped the script and came out and said, I was wrong.
Yeah.
You know, and people respect him for that. When you come out and admit that, you're going to get the respect from people. You're not going to look stupid. You're going to get more respect for that.
Totally. No, I'm with you.
There was just to go off at a slight tangent, but there was, you'd reminded me of something that happened in prison. And on the wing that I was, there was a couple of brothers ended up there, and one of them had seizures. And the younger brother who came in after him brought in a little bit of cannabis. And because the guy was having seizures every night, they put him on a mattress on the floor so he didn't fall out of bed during his seizures. That was their solution.
Would let him have cannabis?
Brother brought in some cannabis. He had a little puff and his seizures stopped immediately. But of course, he was then nicked for having cannabis in prison, and he got an extra, and taken to court, and they put an extra week on his sentence.
Yeah.
That was the
It was
result.
awful. Like,
But it was this was cannabis in action.
And he knew. He said, "I need cannabis. Like I need." And they could have given it to him in form of oil or, you know. I tried. You know, I tried. I'd spoke. I think I even spoke to the governor about it. But again, he claimed that it was higher than him. It wasn't allowed. Because they look stupid. That's why you've got you still got a prison. Half full of people for cannabis dealing. Because they kind of
You can't
be a
cannabis dealer yourself, even though it's legal.
Yeah, they kind of stopped so much with the small amounts of possession. We weren't really seeing people for possession anymore when we were in prison, but dealing was still an issue. So obviously they would just look like idiots, right? Dealing it through the med hatch when they've got people in prison for dealing. So they don't want to make themselves look like idiots, I don't think. But watching him suffer, knowing that would have helped him, I really struggled with. And it was hard for his brother. I remember speaking to his brother, and he said, having to be locked in these tiny cells, listening to your brother, I think it was underneath him.
They were next door.
Listening to his brother having a fit, knowing he could do nothing to help him, must have been really traumatizing for his brother. To know that he could choke on his tongue, he could, and all again, and you wouldn't be unlocked. You're not. They won't unlock you unless they thought he was actually dying.
Gonna die.
You have to be on death, that they think that you're dying to unlock you at night. There's a huge protocol around unlocking at night.
Yeah, you can't.
So him having a seizure isn't to them a reason to unlock.
Or at any time.
Unlock him.
Or at any time.
Yeah.
Once it's
Once
locked
you're
up.
locked, you're locked. Now I'm deadly serious. I only ever saw a door get unlocked once, and that's because we had a girl that should never have been in prison. She was, she should have been at the Oberlin. She clearly had psychosis or schizophrenia. It was horrendous, and they thought she was dead, she was non-responsive. They thought she had died in her sleep. So that was the only, and it was traumatizing for me to hear, being locked in a cell, hearing them go, she's not responding. We're gonna have to unlock her. Unlocking, thinking, oh my God, she's dead. That's the only time that you would get unlocked. So this, I won't name him, but knowing that he was having seizures and not even being unlocked, just throw a mattress down for you rather than give him a couple of drops of some oil.
There's an extra mattress.
He wasn't asking to smoke weed in his cell. Give the guy some oil. Help him. But no. Yeah, totally inhumane. I don't agree with it. It's wrong. Meanwhile, smoke as many of those stupid fucking vapes as you want in there. The nicotine vapes.
Nicotine
they'll supply nicotine vapes to you all day long and make money out of you. But you can't. You couldn't have a vape with a little bit of,
There were about 5 people in that
Guernsey
prison
gold or something in it.
didn't have vapes.
And we were
2 of them.
That's a human rights violation at the end of the day.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
But sadly, you don't have any human rights in prison. You're not treated as a fair human being. I don't believe so.
No, the
All of that
system
goes
doesn't.
out the window. You're just a
Personally,
prisoner. They don't. Then even the language, they don't like to refer to you as a person or, even your room. There's certain language around you knowing that you're a prisoner. That this is a cell. It's not your room. It's a cell. There's this language that is really enforced, so that that you've lost all your rights as a
You've just reminded me of something. There's a little bugbear of mine, nothing to do with prison, but to do with the organisation that put us in prison, or helped to put us in prison, which is our local police and customs service. Well, they're not police and customs service. They're bailiwick law enforcement.
Yeah.
And I think in that title is so much angst and so much of a problem. Because if you work for bailiwick law enforcement, your job is to enforce the law, nothing else. You're just enforcers. And I think that creates the environment that we find ourselves in.
Exactly.
Talking about irrational police activities and the border control.
Yeah, well,
If you're an enforcer, you're an enforcer.
it's meant to be a service.
If you're a police service, then you provide a service.
Yeah.
And just just those words have a massive effect on those people that operate within that system.
The language is and the culture within it. Like,
One creates
I've
another.
got compassion and respect for the police and what they have to do
yes, of
and
course.
see and all of that. But the culture and the language needs to change because they took an oath to serve. They took an oath to serve their community, not serve the government, to serve their community. And I don't see that anymore. What happened to these, Bob on the beat that you know him by first name, you've got this respect, there's a rapport, someone you can confide in if there is issues, all of that's lost. Now we've got guys in bulletproof vests going to do gun training, and it's like, what happened?
If we were in London, I understand.
Totally, but we're not. This is
that's-
a beautiful little island and a beautiful community, and I'm not saying shit doesn't go down, and I'm not saying that may not be necessary at some points, but it's not needed. Like, it looks ridiculous most of the time. And
We still own the armour-plated Land Rover, I believe, that's never been used.
Sinking onto the tarmac.
I
at the
just
police
would
station.
really love to see that sense of community within the police again, because there is this us and them. There's this real gap, and it's sad.
Yes.
I don't think that needs to be there. I think
They're part of the community as well.
I think
So they
They should be considered a community service officer.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
but they're not.
Yeah.
They're not.
and I do think
They're
there
the old
needs to
bill.
be an olive branch that comes from the police service, because I think the olive branch is there from the community. It's just not coming back from them. Even all that I've been through and that they've done throughout my life, raided the house, the traumatizing stuff, all of it, strip searching. I still forgive them. I've still got compassion for them. So the olive branch is there from me, but it needs to come back.
It's
from
got,
the
absolutely.
community.
So, as you've probably already seen, it's a long episode. We ended up 4 hours with Lucia and Mike, so we are having to split it into two. So, thanks for joining us for part one. Part two will be dropping in 2 weeks, so please bear with us and give us your feedback on what you've heard so far. Big love to Lucia and Mike. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.